Okay, well, the beginning of my story start at the childhood up to age of 5. I don't remember any of the things that happened at that time. Except the one time I remember that I used to love eating poppy seeds. And of course, your poppy seeds, you have to chew them up, otherwise they get popped up in the stomach and they expand and it'll give you a bellyache. So this one time I had a good feed of poppy seed, and of course I got a little bit constipation. And that was a funny one, though, you know. So I finally had to complain to my mom, and she had experiences with me in that range before. So she got the old syringe and gave me a little bit of pump up to get my elements going properly. And that was the first experience in my babyhood days. I must have been, I'd say about 4 years old. I go according to the memories of my old log cabin that I lived in. And this is where my experiences start at that age. My parents, my mom's idea, and her friend Dunya Anishenko, she came to visit us. So her daughter was my age, so I was 4 years old approximately. And Lina was about, I'd say 4 years old. And they wanted to teach us, both of us, to be romantic. So they set up on an old wooden trunk sitting in the corner, and made us sit by side and then put their arms around each other and tried to get us to kiss each other. Well, that was a poor attempt because we just refused to do it. We thought it was a little bit too early for romance at our age. Oh, I could just picture that right now. How interesting we were. Take care of somebody by teaching Tirza at, how old is she now, 3?
Almost.
And I was just a year older. Mm-hmm. And here we were being taught the life of romance.
I was born to Alec Conkin and Annie Conkin, who was a Planadon before she was married, a daughter of Sam and Hannah Planadon. And they came from Russia when my mom was only 7 years old. And when they were getting ready to come to Canada, they thought they were going to come, which they made plans to come on the Titanic. And everybody knows what happened to that ship, the Titanic. It was a great ship that was unsinkable, but that's not what happened. It did sink, but they weren't on it. And we're thankful that they weren't on it, because somehow or other, I don't know exactly how it came about, but they missed it. And they had to come on another ship. And they came across and came to Canada and settled in well, I know they made their home a lot in Prince Albert, but from the time that they came to Canada, where they were, somewhere anyway for a while, but they moved to Saskatchewan, and they lived in Prince Albert, and that's where my grandma worked for a while, and my mom started school. She was 7 years old at the time, and she started going to school, and she was doing very well, learning English and going to school and learning all kinds of things like the Canadian kids do. So that was the story of my mom's beginning in Canada. My dad was born in, his parents came from Russia, but he was born here in Saskatchewan. And grew up here and everything, and then somehow, of course, Mom and Dad met when they were grown up. And somehow, oh yeah, my grandpa and grandma and their family, which was my mom, and she had which was Annie, all right, and then she had another sister, older sister, Stella they called her, but she was actually Anastasia, and Mary, or Masha, and Martha is the younger from my mom, and Agnes. So there were 5 girls. So they grew up, and they somehow purchased a farm in the Sri Lanka area. Now I don't know how many of you know where the Sri Lanka area is. It's east of Plain Lake. Like we were in the Ospenia area, but they were in the Sri Lanka area. So they were neighboring districts actually. So Mom and Dad met somehow, which I don't know the story, how they met, but eventually they got old enough to get married, and which was, they were quite young, I think 18.
My first impressions of my parents was Dad telling you how he left Ukraine, and a matter of emergency, he was called to the army, and he wasn't ready to go for the army, so he had heard about Canada, and he decided to make a go for it and come here. It's actually breaking the law of the nation that you had to serve your country. Well, he didn't care for that idea, so he got in contact with a special friend of his that knew how to arrange passports on the black market. And so he got in touch with his friend and arranged for his escape from Ukraine. And he was well, he had to leave the country on the sly. So he left that night and traveled by boat on the river. And how far this something I wish I remember, but he arrived in Poland overnight, and from there he proceeded to come to Belgium. So his arrival in Canada, yeah, he met up with the friend. He knew of his friend that had come together with him. But to enter Canada, you had to officially show that you had money to survive. So his friend gave him $5, borrowed it to him to show it at the immigration office. He had the $5. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to enter Canada. And in the meantime also, he made it through that way, but when they were leaving Ukraine, they knew that Canada was America. And America could cover North and South America. And so they asked him, where do you want to go? His passport was destined South America. But he mentioned Canada. Oh, okay, you go to Canada. And this is where he arrived in Montreal. And from there he proceeded to go directly to Saskatchewan. His sojourn in Canada, he did recall that he worked on the construction of Canada Building in the city here, and that was his first job in Canada. And from there on, he worked on a railway from PA to Saskatoon. So he was employed for several years, and of course in the meantime, during those years, he met my mom at that time. And it was just a brief encounter. He worked on the railway, and Mom lived in Petrovka area among the Doukhobors. And she actually mentioned the fact that she had to herd the cattle. And her companion to herd cattle was Pete McGarrett, which was related to me as a later story. But anyways, Dad came to Blaine Lake, and this is part of our story that especially how did they meet, I don't know. Again, my mom was 14 at that time, and Dad was 24. And there must have been some friendship going on between them, but he asked her to marry him at the age of 14. And so they had to travel by wagon to Rostern to get married. So that was a trip, a day to Rostern, obtain the marriage license and whatever, and journeying back to Blaine Lake. And some friends of theirs were settling down in Klitschkowska, that's about 25 miles out of Blaine Lake. And they obtained a homestead, and that's where they lived for approximately 3 years. But the land was very unproductive, a lot of forest and a lot of rock on the fields. So they didn't like it. And that county area was prone to early frost in the fall. So they didn't have too much of a success in settling there. So they moved to Blaine Lake when there was a land open for them to purchase. which is the home quarter now. And the first home was a log building, a log home that they lived in until 1929 or 1930. In the meantime, the family had risen to, 3 sisters. One was born later on, and they had the misfortune of losing their home to a fire, and they proceeded to build a new home on the same quarter, and that's where I actually would like to start to relate my life. When they were building the house, it was a very fascinating project. As a little boy, 5 years old, to be witnessing of a home, and at that means of construction, I had the misfortune of playing up on the flat deck. Actually, there's no roof on the house yet, just a floor. And I was playing up there, and somehow went down fell down the stairway, down into the basement. But fortunately, I wasn't hurt.
So I was born in 1924, and we lived together with Dad's mom and dad in that house over there. Where the whole family, there was a big family that lived there. My dad and mom, and then he had an older brother, Bill, who was married to Hannah, and they lived there for a while, but then when Dad got married, then they moved out, and in the meantime, Mom and Dad still lived with Grandma and Grandpa, and that's where I was born. And then there's also my Uncle John, that was Dad's younger brother, and he got married to Lena, and they lived together, so there was a big family there. And they all lived together, and then they also had, Dad had 2 sisters, Mary and Emma, and they lived there. And a lot of the times, there was another member, a cousin of some kind from BC or wherever he was, I don't quite remember, but, and he lived in that house with them, which was Wishloff, John or Bill, I think it was John. And it's not the Wishloffs that lived next to us, but it's a cousin of my grandma's. She was a Wishloff. And so anyway, after 4 years, of course, my grandma was just always trying to do something for me. She loved me so much, and I had a lot of love and attention, and I loved my grandma. And then after 4 years, my sister Mabel was born. And so there again, that was a joy to the family, that there was another addition. Of course, the house is getting fuller. So after Mabel grew up to be 1 year old, Dad and Mom decided they're going to build a little house just north of the main house that everybody lived in. And they built that house, and I think a lot of the grandkids knew where that place is. Just north of this big house that we lived in. And that's where we lived for many years.
started school at age of 7. My first days in school were rather formidable to me. My one experience was that as I was sitting at the desk, my sister Tina happened to be chewing gum. And the doctor called her up, pardon me, the teacher called her up, since it was against the regulation to chew gum during class. So he called her up and he gave her a strap. I was afraid that since Tina got a strap, I might have to get a strap for some reason. So I just kind of took off from school and I disappeared from there. I come home and I remember my mom asking how come I'm home. Oh, I didn't want to go home. But anyway, the series of days were kind of scary to me because the teacher wasn't exactly favorable with the kids. And any slightest thing that they're doing, they got a strapping for it. And every time he did get a strapping to anybody, I would take off from school and run off into a bush nearby and come back home. Time with the students when they left school, going home, and I went home at the same time. The teacher finally got in touch with my mom. What happened there? That I never stayed in school, I ran off. So my mom would take me to school, put me in the desk, and told me to stay there till time to go home. Well, I didn't favor the idea either, so I just kept running out from school. But eventually, one time, I did run off and my mom was watching where I was going. And it was during harvest time, I made my escapade as usual, and there was a trash machine standing out in the field. They ran to the trash machine, but there's no place to hide. And that trash machine had a blower in there to blow the straw away from the machine. And I climbed up into the blower pipe. Mom came and she looked and she couldn't find me. And here I was in the blower pipe. I don't remember that part, but I know I had a terrible scare because I wasn't able to back out from the pipe. I was stuck there. Somehow or other, I did slide out from the pipe. Mom was waiting for me, and of course took me home. Later on, it was some years later, I was never in favor of going to school and staying there for the whole day. So I was about 8, 9 years old, and again, instead of going to school, I just stopped over in a bush on our farm and just stayed there all day until it was time to go home. So the teacher come along and I asked her mama, what was going on there? How come I never showed up in school? Oh, well, she realized she'd better track me down and see my activities during the day. So of course I kept going to the beautiful bush, a nice meadow in there. So that's where I just climbed trees and watched the clouds go by and watched the butterflies and lying down on my back, looking up at the clouds. Yeah, and here all at once in my daydreaming, my mom comes up, "What are you doing here? What the yellow?" Oh, of course, that scared me pretty bad. And I think she had enough of my hanky-panks. I got a strapping from her. Not a strapping, but she broke off a willow and gave me a little bit of a whipping and marched me home. But after that, I think I did behave because I don't remember any more incidents like that. My first days in school, when I had adjusted, it might have been grade 2 already, and I was sitting. We had a double desk where 2 students sat at one desk, and a girl by the name of Mildred was happened to be my mate sitting at that desk. So I wanted to make an impression on her. One time I took my sister's perfume and I soaked myself, I guess overly too much, and just to make an impression on my little girlfriend. She didn't even know I had an affection for her. But at that time it was pretty serious if I was able to attract her attention with perfume. But the consequence of that didn't turn out too good. The teacher moved us apart to different parts of the schoolroom. And that was the end of my romance with my first ever.
Yeah, I enjoyed my school days. Went to a one-room school, a Spanish school. We had different teachers there that mostly liked them. They would come, and of course they'd have to discipline some of the kids. But I was one of the kids that didn't need too much disciplining. I guess I should be proud of myself, but it was just one of those things I think that was God-given to me, that just behave. And I had a best friend there, and she's still my friend. Her name is Florence. And we were the best of friends even till now. Like she lives in Calgary, but we still try to get in touch once in a while. So that's what I call a real good, faithful school friend. And when we were finished, anyway, that was up to grade 8 or 9. I had gone to that one-room school, and the teachers helped in helped in every way that they can. And then I had to go to another school, which I took to Marsland School, which I took. That's where I had my high school education. And the teachers there were sisters, nuns at that time, and they were very, very good teachers. I loved them, and so did everybody else. Can't help but love them. They were so kind. They didn't try to convert you to Catholicism or anything, because they were Catholic. It was nuns from the Catholic denomination, but they taught without bringing in religion. But they did have their catechism if anybody wanted to go, but they had it at a certain time. Whoever wanted to go, they can go. But they never pressured anybody, which I appreciated also, that they didn't. So anyway, that was my high school days in Marsland. And how I got there to Marsland is with a horse and buggy. I didn't have a car. My dad couldn't take me there, and I couldn't stay there all the time because in Marsland, because we just couldn't afford to at the time, and couldn't afford the money. But so we went, and I just stayed overnight with my cousin there. We stayed together. One of my cousins, and she was going to high school also, and so we stayed together. And anyway, going to there to get to school. Well, of course, how do I get there? Well, that's how I got there, is by my horse and buggy. I had a real nice, quiet horse that Dad said, well, that's going to be your horse to travel with. Her name was Flossie, and she was kind of gray or white or whatever, but anyway, light-colored. And buggy. And one of my aunts was going to school at that time to meet with me also. We'd both travel there to go there. And of course, we stayed there for the week. And what do I do with that horse? So there was a farm there, just right next door to the town. There was a farm that was either, I don't know if Dad had a share in it or Uncle Bill. I don't know for sure, but I was able to put my horse out there for the week in the pasture, and there was water there. But then, when it came Friday, I wanted to go home. I had to go and get the horse, harness it, and get my buggy in order to, hitch it to the buggy and then go home. But there was a couple of times, especially one time, I went there to try and catch this horse, and my Flossie was stubborn. She'd come up to, I'd have a little bit of oats or something in a pail, and I'd say, come here. I just stretched my hand out to grab hold of her halter, and away she goes. I said, come on, I have to get home. Come on, okay. So I tried to talk gently to her, and I don't know, it took quite a while. I thought, come on, I can't do this. But it was fun. It seems fun now, and it was fun then. But we did get that horse. She finally gave in, let me catch her. And then I brought her, harnessed her. I was pretty good I was pretty active at that time with horses, and to hitch her to the buggy and get in and go home. And that was the experience of my life going to high school in Marsland.
School days for me were rather, not the best days. During that period of time, I had a bad earache, and Mom took me to town to a doctor, and the doctor told her, you can't go take him home. You gotta take him to Prince Albert, to a hospital right now. So he didn't even have a chance to come home. Mom took me on the train and went to Prince Albert, where I stayed for several weeks. But in the interval, I lost my hearing pretty bad. One ear I lost completely. And I found it very strange when lying there in the hospital and not being able to hear too good. Why? I didn't understand what it was all about. I was about maybe 8, possibly 9 years old at that time. But I came back home and started off to school again. But due to my deafness, it was hard for me to understand what the teacher talked, what the students talked, and I got kind of reserved because the kids started referring to me as stupid because I did not respond with the right questions, the right answers, and the teacher, I didn't understand him. And my other impediment was that when I had started school, I didn't know a word of Russian or Ukrainian. All our language at home, even with the sisters and the parents, was in Ukrainian. So that was another impediment to me in school. I had to learn a new language for about half a year, 1 year. And so it took me a long time to get rid of that inferior complex, that being able to communicate, and I think I did get reserved, which I carried later on in my teenage years. It took me a long time to get rid of that. We were in school. I went to recreation. We played downstairs in the school. Whatever activities. A friend of mine, a neighbor of mine, brought at 22 with the bell cut off and made a pistol out of it. So we were downstairs in the basement playing target practice, shooting with live ammunition. And the teacher found that out. All boys, there were 6 of us, we all got a licking for that. Teachers were famous for giving lickings to their students. So that's what happened there. The teacher found out, we got a good licking for it. My neighbor got kicked out of school for 2 weeks for bringing the gun to school. I liked our teacher, but we didn't like him. There's one teacher in particular, he was a great one for handing out straps. So anybody that made any kind of a wrong play or whatever it was, or attitude, or didn't do his homework, his or her homework, it made no difference to him. If the girl didn't do any of her homework, she got a strap just as well as the boys did. But anyway, that one teacher in particular, he stayed only for half a term, and they finally took him out of the teaching profession, I believe, for his rough treatment of the students. That was a joyful time for us to see the teacher go. But in the meantime, one of my pranks, I call it a prank, to get even with the teacher was, it's kind of a long story, but in the corner there's a rope that led from hand level and up to the ceiling, and along the ceiling and coming down, we had a globe hanging on the, and it wasn't too far away from the teacher's desk. So I developed an idea that I was going to get him good and proper. So every day I'd move the desk 1 inch closer and closer so the teacher would be finally sitting underneath the globe. So as usual, the teacher put me in the corner. Whatever I didn't do right to polish me. And that was one moment I was looking forward to. And of course, I got arranged that the teacher put me in the corner. So here was my chance to accomplish what I wanted to do. And I slowly but surely, I played with the rope. I had the weight on there and lowered the globe down, slowly, slowly down, just over the teacher's head. And of course, the pulley up on the ceiling squeaked as the rope was being run through the pulley. I didn't quite accomplish what I wanted to do, because the teacher looked up, what was that sound that he heard? And there he sees the globe hanging right down over where he sat. Well, that was kind of a double punishment for me, because he doubled my time to stand in the corner, but in a different corner. There's one student in particular, he always bugged me. And called me some names I didn't like. I finally got fed up with it. And then we always carried our lunches to school with a syrup pail and tea or whatever it was in the lunch pail. It was a very large size. And I was having my lunch, and this student, Peter was his name, I gave a good whap on the head with the lunch pail. Of course, I broke the bottle in the lunch pail, soaked my sandwiches, and Peter took off, he tattled to the teacher. The teacher come back to settle the score between the two of us. I tried to explain to the teacher that he was picking on me, which he really was. And whatever it was, whether he gave me a strap, there was something about it, that some kind of a punishment, double my homework or something. I think it was doubling my homework. So I guess in one of those instances in school, there were many, many more. But as always, us boys grow up.
When I finished high school in Marsland, then I was kind of wondering, well, what am I going to do now? My dad told me, says, you know what, go to normal school for a while, because they take teachers after just a short term of education at the normal school. It used to be called normal school, now they call it teachers' college. But at that time it was normal school. And it was only a 6-week course, and you could go out teaching. I said, okay, I could try. I gave in. So when Mom and Dad were who but I remember Mom found me a place to stay with. She was a beautiful lady that I stayed with. And that was the beginning, I think, of my, where I could feel God's leading to live with Christian families. She was a Christian. When I went someplace else, again I was brought in with Christian families, and I was just so blessed. And anyway, coming back to this Marsland at normal school. It was it was an education itself. It was kind of hard to know what to do with the kids and everything. But anyway, after 6 weeks, I had to go out and teach, and I was still pretty young with not much education. And I went to this one school. They found me a school right at the normal school. They said, "Here's a school. It's not too far from your place," and they talked me into taking that school. And it was north, Mullingar, if anybody knows where Mullingar is. And there was some. It was a school, kind of more of a shack than a school. And I had kids there, not too many kids, about 10, 9. And they weren't very well behaved. And for me, for a kid that just came out of school and out of, they were giving me a hard time. But anyway, so I was able to make it through to Christmas. And then I said, "No, I'm resigning. I'm not teaching here anymore. Sorry." Okay, so I came home. Mom and Dad came and got me, and I came home. And what do I do now? So, of course, Dad, as usual, he says, "Well, you know what? He'll try to find a job for me all the time," because I don't know if he thought I wouldn't be able to, or maybe I thought I'd stay home, whatever he thought. But anyway, he found a place. He says, "There's a school that's looking for a job." I think he looked in the papers more than I did. He says, it seems very good place. So he says, "You phone to this place." Okay, I'll phone. So that my next school was Prairie. But it was it was in the district of Prairie, which is a town. But my school was Big Valley School, it's called. And there too, I had only about 10 or 12 kids. From grade 1 to 9. I had one girl, grade 9, which I had to help. And anyway, that school was better than the one that I had earlier. And I stayed there for over 2 years, I think. 2.5 years, I think. Or was it 2 years? Whatever it was. Anyway, something like that. I forget now. And made good friends there and everything. And then I came home, and somebody, and then I started, not I started, there was a school, Greystone School. They needed a teacher. The teacher that was there was going to have a baby, and she needed time off. So as usual, my dad says, "Hey, there's a new opportunity there." He prompted me in so many ways, more so. So I said, okay. So I applied for that and got it. Of course, didn't get a very good wage. Well, not any of the schools. Not even $1,000 a year. A year, not a month. Yeah, so anyway, I got this job in teaching in Greystone and stayed there for a 1.5 years or so. I forgot. My brain doesn't want to remember right now. But anyway, all in all, I put 4 years of teaching. And then I says, that's it. I don't want to teach anymore. I'd like to try something else.
When I had entered about 12, 13 years old, our school had a ball team going, and I was able to play ball during recess activities. And our school had, not only our school, but our neighboring schools had kind of a competition going on with ball games. On Friday evenings, we'd all go to a particular school and play ball against different schools. And then one of those days happened to be a Friday where we played ball in our ground, and he was a young girl that attracted me. And so consequent games, I kept looking forward to playing ball against the Spanish school. And that's where Baba now, by that time, just a young girl. So one time she didn't seem to get attracted to me, and I had to draw her attention to me. As we were playing ball, she happened to hit the ball, and I had to come first base, where I was the first baseman catcher. And the first base was my occasion and a chance to really attract her. So as she was running by, I managed to trip her a little bit. That was the beginning of our rather scarce friendship, because she came from a different school once or twice, maybe once a month usually, which would then give us enough occasion to meet up again.
Anyway, to get back to where we met and how we met with Bill and I, but was a funny story in itself. We lived in neighboring school districts. His was the Greystone district, mine was the Espana school district. And we used to play softball against each other. They had a team and we had a team, and ours wasn't a very strong team. But the Greystone team was a very strong team, even though they had girls on their team. I don't know how many, but they had, and just as many girls as they were boys, maybe more, I don't know. But anyway, and there was this big Kardash, Bill, whose name was Bill Kardash, and he was the biggest one of all on their team, and also on compared to our team. And we were all afraid that big Kardash is going to make home runs. For everybody, they'd have a full, all bases loaded, and then of course they'd put Kardash on bat, and he'd hit this ball way over the fence, and seemed like I just went everywhere past the, I don't know where it went. There was a bush or what, but so, and all these runs would be coming in, 3 plus his own. So that's the way we used to play ball, and they'd win 100-10 or something like that. So we thought we didn't like that idea that Big Bill Kardash was on that team. He's the one that's spoiling everything for us. But anyway, there was one incident that I was up to bat. Now, I wasn't a very good player, but they wanted me to play anyway because there was nobody else, I guess. And anyway, when I tried to hit the ball, and I hit the best I can, and I was running to first base, and of course, Big Bill was on the on first base, catching the ball, and trying to get people out, or what they call. One strike, you're out. But here I was, running with all my might, trying to get to first base, and ball was thrown to him, and I don't quite remember how it happened, but anyway, he stuck his foot out so I could just trip on it, which I didn't realize that he had his foot that far out, and I fell. And I think that was the first time, maybe, that I thought, did I fall for him? Or is he trying to do that? So whatever it was. But he thought he did a very good or interesting thing that attracted my attention. Now, okay, you wanted to hear that story, so here it is. And that was our first real meeting, which I didn't even care for at that time, but he seemed to be pretty pleased.
Agatha, I did develop a fondness for her, and to go and see her on the farm where she lived. They used to have other friends around coming and get together. It was a very friendly district, nice people, nice young people that lived there, and I would stay for the party, and then since I didn't seem to fit in, the boys, I didn't know the boys too much, So, and Agatha was involved as a hostess to the young people there. She had her time to develop a close friendship with them, and nice parties that used to go on there. But anyways, I would go and visit her mom in the summer kitchen. It's a little building where they used to cook their meals in summertime. They ate their meals. And I'd spend most of my time with her mom instead of spending time with young people in the house. I spent my time, and I enjoyed that. She seemed to have a very warm personality at that time, and I think she even realized what I was kind of handicapped in developing a friendship, comradeship. So when I think about it now, she was quite helpful in that respect. There were school dances, and that was a place where everybody, young people, go to a dance and carry on their friendships. And the first rather serious, where we had gone up to Klaskowski to a platform dance, outdoor platform dance. And I asked Agatha to come along as my date to go to that dance. Well, the dance was over and coming home. I guess she was tired. I was driving home. She put her head on my shoulder, and that was one sweet time that I had her put her head on my shoulder. Agatha entered her teaching days, so she left for one country school there. I didn't see her till Christmas time, and after Christmas she moved over to another school down to Prairie. And that was a year's absence there pretty well. And she came back and taught in our school, Grayson School. So I was able to kind of reconnect our friendship. But that didn't last long. Mom, or Agatha, decided to go to Toronto to further her. Well, she didn't like teaching. She finally quit teaching and left her for a different type of work and different country part where she wanted to try out a life away from home.
I wrote to my relatives in Toronto, do you think I could find a job there because you all seem to be doing real well there. And I'd like to, sure, come on over, we'll find you a job. So what do? Pack up and go to Toronto. And sure enough, before long, one of my cousins found me this, there's a good job, you can go and try and apply for it and see how you like it. CNR Express. So I went there and we looked it over and I applied, and sure enough, I got it. And I enjoyed it very much. But I stayed there only 1 year.
After some correspondence, which wasn't very much, we decided to connect again by letter. Oh, it was a little bit more, very brief connection by telegram. Her sister, Mabel, made contact with my sister, Marlene. That there was a certain connection still maintained from years before with Agatha, and I got in touch with her, and things kind of proceeded, and I proposed.
Something was prompting me to come home. And it was a friend of mine who became my husband that wanted me to come home. He says, will you come home? Or something or other. Exactly how it came about. But anyway, I came home from there, and I said I'd never marry a farmer, but what did I do? He proposed and I married a farmer.
Her arrival from Toronto all culminated in our getting married in 3 weeks' time. So it was a very, very wonderful part of my life.
So that's how our life began as farmers. which was I never regretted it. It was very good. Why is it so important that he tripped me?
Because it's such a cute story.
Because it's a funny story.
And then you fell for him, quite literally.
Not at that moment, I didn't.
I know.
I was mad at him.
I know, exactly. It's fun. It's so funny.
I was in that big car that stripped me on.